Welcome to the City Project for Algebra 1. This is Mr. Smith, and I'm going to help you guys get started with the project. This is City Task number 1. There's a number 2 also, so the numbers won't be exactly the same, but I believe Graph 1, which is Main Street, is pretty much the same concepts, just different numbers. So just follow along and plug in your own numbers for this. All right. The first thing we want to do, according to the instructions, we're going to graph line 1, which is called Main Street. And it says to graph the line formed from the 2 given points. So we want to be obedient to that. And we want to identify our 2 given points as x1, y1. That's x coordinate number 1 and y coordinate number 1. This is the first one in line. And then we want to identify the second as the second x coordinate number 2 and the y coordinate number 2. All right, so we got those 2 points. Later we'll find the slope, which you can see comes next, but first we want to just graph those 2 points. So let's just go to the graph, turn the page, go to your graph, and let's go ahead and plot the points that we have here. The first one, well, before we can do that, let's identify the origin. The origin is located where the x and y axis cross. All right, 0, 0. And from the origin, that's where we start plotting. Okay, so you put your pencil on 0, 0, and then we're going to plot the first point, which is -9. So you will go left 9 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then up 1, as you can see on the graph here. All right, and then we're going to plot our second point, which is to the right. Now, this is +9, 7. So to the right 9 units, and then up 7. And then you plot your points. All right, and so now we come back to page 1. All right, and we're going to follow the second instruction now. We've plotted our points. We could have actually drawn a line with a ruler, but not in Mr. Smith's class. Mr. Smith wants you to plot every point because I want you to use the slope that we're getting ready to find right now to find every other point on the line. So here we go. Find the street, or the equation in slope-intercept form. Well, in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, we have to know the slope first, and then we have to figure out what the y-intercept is going to be after that, because they didn't give us the y-intercept. They only gave us 2 points. So let's start with finding the slope. Our first our top part is to subtract y1 away from y2. So y2 minus y1, which is 1 minus 7. And then the bottom would be -9, which is x2, minus x1, which is 9. So you have that. On the top, when we do the math, we end up getting -6. And on the bottom, we end up getting -18, not 0. So make sure you know your integer rules really good, or just use the calculator. But if you don't know how to use the calculator, you'll still get the wrong answer. So we just want to make sure we know how to do this. All right. -9 minus 9 is 18. So whenever you simplify this, you get +1/3, which a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay. And then they both have 6 as their greatest common factor. So the top will give you 1 and the bottom will give you 3. And again, you don't want to convert this into a decimal because we can't graph. A decimal has no rise over run. It's not an exact amount, so we want to stick with the fraction, especially when it comes to graphing. All right, so now that we have our slope, we're going to use one of these points that they gave us. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but we're going to use one of them, and we're going to plug one of those points as well as our slope into the world famous point slope form. All right, so here we go. I'm going to use the first point just because it's the first point and I just didn't feel like using the second point. And I have y minus 7, which is y minus y1, and then I have the slope, which is 1/3, equals the slope, which is 1/3 times x minus 9. Got it? So we plugged it in. All we did was plug it in right there. Now we have to simplify it in order to get our equation in slope-intercept form. And then we will actually know the y-intercept at that point. So the first thing we're going to do is to distribute. We're going to multiply 1/3 times x. And then we're going to multiply 1/3 times -9. This is going to give us this result. The left side stays the same, but we get 1/3 x minus 3 on the right side. And we got that result, once again, just by multiplying the 1/3 times each term inside the parentheses, which was x and then -9. All right, so now that we have that, we have to add 7 to both sides, because adding is the reverse or the inverse of subtracting 7. And so we want to cancel the 7 so that y will be by itself. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And so I would add 7 to -3, because those two terms are alike. Therefore, when I add +7 to a -3, it's like subtracting 3 from 7, which is going to give me 4. So my final equation, which I'm going to write on this line right here, then is y equals 1/3 x plus 4. So what's the y-intercept? It's 4. Okay, the slope is 1/3, the y-intercept is 4. So now I can plot every point on the line using the rise over run, and since I know the y, I can confirm it when I graph it. So here we go. We're going to start with the leftmost point, and we're going to use our slope to rise 1 and then run 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to plot our point. So that's the next point on the line. And then we're going to repeat this process until we run out of space, because that's the way we do it in Mr. Smith's class. Amen. Rise again, 1, then run 3, 2, 3. Then what do? Plot a point. Let's rise again. Rise 1, and then run 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we ran into the y-axis. What happens when we run into the y-axis? Well, we call that point the y-intercept. Well, does it agree with what we found in our equation? Is it +4? Well, let's start at the origin. Put your finger on the origin and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at it. It's right there on time. And if we keep rising 1 and running 3, we're going to get all the points that are going to be on this line. You see how it's lining up? One more. Look at it's lining up. Then we run into the point we already had. Then we go past that point. And then we're going to go backwards. Go back to the point where we started, go down 1, and then to the left, we're going backwards 3. Just the reverse of what we did before. Plot that last point over there. I don't know how many points you have on your graph, but go all the way to the end. Then draw the world famous line with a ruler. Do not freehand this. I know it's a rough draft, but you better use a ruler and draw a straight line, okay? Preferably in a different color. Then you want to label this line 1. You want to label it line 1, and then put the equation y equals 1/3 x plus 4. Label it right there on top of it, either to the left or to the far right. All right, God bless you. Love you. See you tomorrow.